This talk was a really good talk with Moussa Sallouk from Souk. Always great catching up with Moussa. We covered a lot of ground, all the COVID changes, all the things he's been addressing as far as day-to-day business and the way he creates his food and the diverse menu that he has. So awesome stuff, really good stuff. It's a great listen. Please subscribe. Please like us. Thanks a lot. We appreciate you.
Y'all ready for this?
Welcome to the DeVerna podcast, where we talk about business, life, and how to win at both.
I'm not going to ask you how your week's been. So
interesting.
It's been interesting.
I don't think
so is there ever a dull moment in the restaurant business as a whole? Like, I've known several people that are either in management or have run restaurants or own restaurants, and it seems like never a dull moment. Like, is it ever just kind of easy? Just like, oh man, this is a cakewalk.
Yeah, when you're closed for a day or two. That's really it. I mean, even then it's the phone calls and the drama and the everything that goes with it. I think I was talking to the guys earlier today, and we were talking about, putting a schedule together for a week. And I mean, you've talked about a to-do list, a not to-do list, and that type of thing. And I took that not to-do list, took it to heart and used it for a while. And then, it depends on who you distribute that not to-do list to. And you can sit and I can schedule my week on a Sunday over a cup of coffee, and then Monday I'm not even open and it's already blown to crap. Yeah. So it's just, you're dealing with all different personalities. You have different age groups. I put a lot of kids through college with the work. It's a flexible schedule, and that's the other thing, scheduling and call-offs and everything that goes with the territory. So yeah, there's never a dull moment. No. Snow days this past Tuesday, you get 14 inches of snow, you shut it down, you lose a day of revenue. And and my whole goal with this concept was to have a quality of life for myself and a quality of life for everybody else. So we're closed Sunday and Monday. Mm-hmm. And so I'm closed Sunday and Monday. That's already a 5-day work week. You lose a day to snow.
Yeah.
Minus another day.
Right.
And we're in an industry where one day can impact the whole week.
Sure.
Volume cures all woes, whether it be labor or everything else that goes with that. So no, there's never a dull. To answer that, no, never.
And I mean, there's already, since the COVID stuff happened, there's already I think it's 1/6 of restaurants in the U.S. have gone out of business. So
I think it was the Restaurant Association was 2 out of every 5 or 2 out of every 6 will never be open again. And luckily, I'm in a market where our leases and our monthly nuts aren't is like they are in Chicago or New York. You're talking a space like mine is probably $50,000 a month in New York or Chicago, and you can't make that on carry out.
Right.
You can go carry out, 24 hours a day. You're not going to make it back on that.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting.
It's definitely been a challenge.
Yeah. And, we've seen, a lot of those people leaving those communities that are not reopening, in different states and different areas of the country and stuff. So yeah, we're blessed. We're always blessed no matter what. We're in the United States and you feel really good about that. But boy, I mean, it's when all of a sudden they say the new rules are this, and you're going to take this restaurant that you've had open for 18 months. Well, at that time, 6 months, right?
It opened October 1st of 19, and that was after a delay of a liquor ticket sitting on somebody's desk in Columbus, which I've got great landlords, so they were able to call the governor and get a push on my liquor ticket, which had put me back 3 months already. And then the building is a historical building, so there's all the historical guidelines that you have to go through to get your monies, and so that was putting stuff back. And then October 1st I'm off to the races, and I'm having a great startup. And usually the rule of thumb is the first 6 months is the honeymoon, But it kept on going, and then, well, it really didn't keep on going because we ran into March 14th. I remember, I'll never forget, I was sitting with my girlfriend, Kara, we were up in my apartment, and he came on TV and said, hey, we're shutting down. You guys are going to have to go to carry out. So that was March 14th. Tuesday or Wednesday that week was St. Patty's Day. So you got somebody like Eddie from the Blarney down the street from me who had tents set up. It's his biggest day of the year. Possibly a 6-figure day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And tents are shut down. You can't do that. And then we're off to the races with carryout. So you quickly have to go from this restaurant that's on a honeymoon and then still going up to the breaks and the record stopping, and you're like, what am I going to do?
Right.
And you don't have time to sit and cry over the spilt milk. It's happening. What are you going to do? Figure it out. And I just spent the rest of the day mainly on the phone, figuring it out. I went to Costco and loaded up on to-go containers. And because it was a Sunday, I couldn't get them from a distributor. And just prepared myself for what was about to come. And just like everybody else, and there's a lot of us that we're talking. I think I talked to Tony from Swig on the phone that day. We talked for probably a half hour, and so you call all the chefs and everybody and just start to try to have kind of a little bit of a support group and get some ideas together how you're going to do it. So
yeah, but fast forward, we're almost a year later, and business has definitely evolved.
Yeah,
you're back to being open, wearing masks in.
Yeah.
Spaced out a little bit more than you would want it to be. Obviously, with the weather now, there's no patio, but the patio is probably a pretty nice shot in the arm in the summer in a very nice summer.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
It was a lifesaver. Yeah, it definitely was. I had 60, even with spacing out. I think I was at like 52 seats. That's bigger than my dining room. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate, and. I had the farmer's market, so there was traffic every Saturday morning, so lunches were taken off. You go from right into lunch into dinner, no time to really switch over, which is a great problem. Not complaining about it.
Yep.
It was you learn you figure out how to do business in a different way for sure.
Yeah.
And March 14th, we were allowed to start outside dining, and the restaurant gods were looking down. The weather started to get better around May 14th. I'm sorry. I think I said March. May 14th, we were allowed to do outside dining, and the weather started to get nice already. Mm-hmm. And then the 21st of May, we were allowed to do inside dining. And my inside dining room, I have the high back booths. And then right when a week before we knew that was kind of coming on the 21st, I called my contractor, Kevin Mariucci, who had done the whole restaurant, and said, hey, can you guys run over and get me some plexiglass? And he ran over, I think, to Carter Lumber or something like that, and got the last few sheets of plexiglass. Those were already going. So, and then my wood guy, Jerry, built frames around them. So if you go over there and you look, it looks like they were supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. So we were already getting into that. Yeah. Hey,
being a little proactive.
So I didn't have to do anything with those seats because the backs were already high enough, and then another 52 inches up. So it was where it needed to be. So I didn't lose all that seating. So, you just have to adapt. Yeah.
And now they've loosened up. Like some things are looser, like curfew, or people are staying. And we're downtown Toledo. We're kind of on the outskirts, but as the weather breaks, I think we'll start to see that kind of flow and come back a lot, right?
Yeah. The curfew to me wasn't a huge thing because at 10 o'clock, Toledo's a 9:30, 10 o'clock, we're done eating type of town. Mm-hmm. You go to Chicago, you go to New York, everybody's getting reservations at 11 p.m. So it wasn't a big, but to my friends that have bars and the ones that my heart went out to because they were suffering. That was a big. The 11 o'clock was a big boost.
Yeah,
and then but what comes along with that too is people think because the curfew was lifted that all the rules and regulations were lifted.
Right.
So now I'm getting yelled at, or my general manager is getting a hard time from people saying, well, we got a 15 top or a 14 top. It's still 10. Just because we can go to 11 p.m., they didn't take,
right.
The
They didn't
of the
change
rules
everything.
are still in place.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And so it gets a little crazy with that. But, yeah, lifting the curfew has definitely helped. I mean, I've seen the numbers. You still have people hanging around, and it was always awkward to try to tell people, hey, you got to finish that drink up and go. You never want to kick anybody out of your restaurant or your bar or anything like that. So,
but you get in big trouble if you don't.
Big trouble, yeah. Fines and fine per person. Like what's $200, $300, $400 per person? That kind of adds up quick.
Yeah, real quick.
But we abided by all that, and I spend money on there's a Remy Halo system that I had put on my my HVAC, which is the ultraviolet light. So as the air starts to recirculate, it kills 98% of supposedly germs and viruses. And I don't think it's supposedly. I know I put one up in my apartment too, and my allergies went away. So we have, I've done everything that I can do. I have a stand up lights that we take into each room that are supposed to, the ultraviolet lights that the medical grade ones. So I mean, I spent a lot, put a lot of money into where we still were keeping going. I'm still putting into it because I don't know how long this is going to last. I mean, we're vaccinating people, but we could still go into with the different strains. Still going to August. I think we're going to be wearing masks for a long time.
Yeah.
So
that's what it seems like. But, well, let's pivot because one of the things I thought was interesting, I eat at Souk all the time. Like it's my favorite restaurant. But there's so like it's kind of like you took a little chunk of you at all the stages of your like tell us about that menu because it's not like I don't even know exactly how if like a friend comes into town and I say, hey, we're going down to Souk, what kind of a restaurant is it? And it's kind of like, well, it's Mediterranean, but it's got some Italian, and then it's got like how would you, coming from the horse's mouth, if you will, like how would you describe A, what it is, and B, where it came from? Because it's an evolution of your life, I think.
Right. Well, being Middle Eastern, I grew up on all the traditional Lebanese foods. So my whole goal was there's some great people in town that do some great Middle Eastern, the Beirut, Byblos, Poco Piatti, which I have respect for all those guys in the utmost respect. But when I transitioned from closing the Italian restaurant and went into this project, it was, I don't want to be like everybody else. So I call it a hip twist on the Mediterranean and the Lebanese food. So I just changed everything. You have your common hummus. Now I'm putting crispy short rib and lamb ragu and spicy banana peppers and calabrese peppers and roasted tomatoes and the fattoush at most places. I called my quinoa salad. So I mixed a little quinoa in with the parsley and the sumac and put a different twist on it. And the tabbouleh, instead of, like bulgur wheat, the traditional, it has quinoa on that. So I just started to put different twists on things. And I had time waiting for, my liquor ticket and some of those other things to really experiment. And, kitchen was up and going. I was just waiting on a permit to get going, as far as the liquor ticket went. That was the last step. So I had a lot of time to play around in that kitchen and mess with. So I brought a lot of my pizzas that I had at La Scola, and the wild boar bolognese used to be veal over there, and I changed it over to boar. And most restaurants have Arias, which is the like my kofta egg rolls. So I put my kofta in egg rolls, which is totally off the. We were going to me and Kara were going to a 4th of July party while I was still waiting to open. And I think we were in Kroger and we're going down the aisle, and we happened to be in the vegan organic aisle. And I just happened to look over. I had lamb in the cart, and I just happened to see egg roll wraps. And just something kicked in, and I'm like, I'm going to grab those. And I'm going to deep fry those things, and we're going to take them to this party. I'm going to do some yogurt sauce with them. Now they're the number one selling thing item on the menu.
They're awesome. They're really good.
4th of July, like, hey, here we go. We're going to bring something different to this party. So, so it's a combination of when I had the burger bars. Some of the burgers that I do for brunch are some of the stuff that I had over there. The kofta burger is something that I used to run over there. So it's a mix of. I just had this, like I had this big storage unit full of recipes and things I've done over the past. And a lot of my features that I used to do in the past were things that I was going to, this has always been in the back of my mind. Mm-hmm. And so that's where all that whole arsenal of all, and there's a ton more. I just haven't, revamped the menu yet.
So how many things are like grandma's old recipe or things that you've had in the arsenal, and how many things are I'm walking through Kroger's? Or I've been thinking through, how much is, because it's all got a little twist to it.
Yeah, the kibbe is my mom and my grandmother's recipe, and it's a little bit different than everybody else's. It eats differently. The kofta is every village, everybody does their stuff. Every village, I was born over there, so every little village does everything their own little twist. Mm-hmm. When my mom was still alive, I would call her and say, hey, how much of the allspice, how much of the cinnamon do I throw into the kofta? I said, I need some measurement. She's like, she goes, you just, you toss, you taste. And so, I was telling some guys the other day that's the way it is. And that's why a lot of the guys in the kitchen, I don't let them make the kibbe. I don't let them make the kofta. I don't let them make the hummus. I do all that myself because I can't give them the measurements. Yeah. it's a little taste of this, and I have to. So
that was another question I was thinking about. Like, how often? So you have a 5-day work week, traditional 5-day open work week, not really a 5-day work week. But how many days off do you get? Like, are you off on those other 2 days? Are you working 7 days? Or I don't really call it work, but I have to go in for 4 hours.
Yeah,
or like,
pretty much. Sunday.
What's that look like?
Sunday I try to make a complete day of kind of rest and just hanging out and maybe reading and stuff like that. But there's Sundays and Mondays are days like Valentine's Day fell on a Sunday. I'm a restaurant. How am I going to be closed on a Sunday? So I do a private wine dinner and sells out for like 65 people. So you go from Valentine's weekend, which is busy Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because everybody's celebrating it. Mm-hmm. And then going to Sunday and have to put out a 6-course dinner, which I enjoy doing. It's therapeutic to me, but that's my day off. And then Mondays are usually ordering days and prep days, heavy prep days, especially after a busy weekend. And I can do some ordering on Sundays. I have everything on my iPhone now. All my purveyors are on there. I can go in and I can just walk around with my iPhone, and all my inventory lists are in there, and it just shoots my orders. And a lot of times Saturday night, I will go through the cooler. I say cooler because the kitchen's small. Yeah, it's manageable. It's tight. I came from an 8,000 square foot restaurant to a 2,800 square foot restaurant. So it's a different blueprint. So made to be that way, made to be tight, made to be more manageable, and made to be more efficient. So, but to answer your question, yes, it's very rare that I get, the 2 days off. It's usually 7 for me. Everybody else is 5. Yeah. I mean, I don't ever go into overtime because I don't ever get paid. Right.
We've talked before about like that to-do list, the not to-do list thing, which is interesting, and conceptually it's always a great idea. Like these are the things, I make this much per hour, and so all these other things I should give away, or this is where my magic is, and all these other things I should give away, which sounds great until it's actually applied, and then it gets really complicated. But what is your favorite part? Like of all the, because you've been doing conceptually like this blanket line of work, but you've done the cooking, you've done the creation, you've done the management, you've done it all. Like, which parts are the parts that you're like, hey, this is where, because I feel like I know what the version of you, part I like the best. Yeah. But I'm curious as to what
it's easy. It's the creating, and the cooking. The cooking, I could be in the worst mood ever, and once I start cooking, it all goes away for some reason, and like things like making the baklava, which is my mother's recipe, and she taught me to do it. That's the most tranquil thing for me, because it's I'll put my earbuds in, I'll listen to some opera or something like that, and that's the whole other thing. When I'm in the kitchen by myself, it's you're listening to music, you're listening to whatever kind of calms you, and by myself is probably the best time in there, and it's the most kind of therapeutic for me. But with the baklava, it brings back good memories of my mom, so I do it, and that's a labor of love. It's layers and layers and layers and butter and layers, but that's it. I think in a nutshell, it's the cooking and in creating new dishes and flavors and menus. I have my own menu software, so everything's created in house. It's printed in house. I have a copier upstairs that I'm able just to copy. If something goes through the roof, protein wise, that's on the menu, I can change the menu and take that off, and
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that's one of the things that the people, all of us, that whether we're going into your restaurant or whether we're getting takeout from your restaurant or really any restaurant, like, we don't know all the moving parts behind the scenes. Like, we think of, oh, geez, look at gas prices. Like, recently this happened, and so we've seen gas prices go from here to here because President Biden did this, or whatever happened. But there's a whole lot more moving parts on your back end with foods and the cost of things and all that stuff, and then complicated even more with the COVID stuff. Like, how do you manage around that when you have basically a stable of the core stable menu, right?
Yeah. Going back to COVID, there was a lot of, I remember seeing on the news, a lot of people were complaining about restaurants that were throwing on this COVID charge. I think it was probably down around your tax or your gratuity. I hadn't heard of it because I was the first 9.5, 10 weeks that we were doing carryout, I was in the kitchen by myself. Everybody else went on layoff and was collecting their unemployment, which they were doing pretty well.
Right.
And so it was just me in the kitchen for 10 weeks. My general manager answering phones and running around, and then my daughter and another girl were just doing curbside service. So there was a few of us. But going back to the moving parts, I didn't have the luxury of raising my prices during COVID, and the boxes, the gloves, the sanitizer, all the things that we had to accumulate. That I mean, we're always sanitizing in the kitchen all the time, and most of the time wearing gloves. But the gloves went from $45 a case to $145 a case. So you want to talk about
tripled?
Yeah, tripled.
Yeah, right.
So,
and I suppose the same thing with
to go
everything.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff that's everybody needs for sure.
Yeah, there's usually an X factor that I put in when I do a menu item. So like a Piedmontese fillet that we do the medallions with, it's $17 just for that 8-ounce fillet before it even hits the broiler. And the X factor would be the oyster mushrooms and the garlic greens and the potatoes that I put in, and the porcini mushroom butter. So you're at 17 before it even hits the plate, and those are the moving parts and the cost that I think when people go out to eat, they don't realize that I already have. If that young kid next to me overcooks that mid rare to a mid well, I just lost 17 right off the bat. That thing's going right in the garbage, or somebody's eating it, but not the customer. Wow. So there's a million moving parts with my electric bill, my gas bill, my water, and the water company comes out and just guesstimates instead of gives you an actual read. It's just all the things that you go through, and especially being a chef, restaurateur, owner. It would be nice to be, and I'm not saying just being a chef at a restaurant that you don't own is easy. It's a little bit easier when you don't have to worry about paying the bills and staying up all night, figuring out if you're going to make payroll. Yeah. And those things, and be able to your job is to create. So I got to create, I got to pay the bills, I got to do my QuickBooks. There's so many moving parts to it that it's
Well, people think it's glamorous, and it kind of is.
When everything's going great, yeah.
It seems very glamorous, but all the heavy lifting. I mean, I think that can be said for a lot of small business owners.
Yeah,
like, oh, geez, like that guy's lucky, or he fell into this, or whatever the situation is. It's all rainbows and unicorns. But, I've been told how lucky I am for a long time. But, I've been getting to work 3 hours before everybody else for like 20 years.
Yeah,
I don't know how much luck. Like, there's definitely still some luck involved.
Yeah, but it's hard work.
But it is hard work.
It's ethic.
It's work ethic. It's all those things. And, nobody else can really factor in those considerations. Like it's hard work. And all of my restaurant people, like, truthfully, you're kind of working when I least want to work.
I mean, I'm like, cleaning. Yeah, I'm cleaning and mopping and cleaning toilets at 6 a.m. I mean, somebody's got to, I mean, especially during this time, I know it sounds crazy, but I want to make sure my restaurant's sanitized and cleaned. And the best person that I know that I trust to do that is me.
Right.
And it's just what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's not always, those are the glamorous moments. Come in at 6:30 in the morning and watch me mop.
Yeah. Well, I've had people follow me too. Yeah. I mean, and this isn't unrelated to COVID, but hey, follow me for a day and see what you think.
I've said that a few times.
And boy, I've not had too many come back a second day.
No,
it's usually just one day thing. It's fun. They get to check it out. But
yeah, I mean, there's a ton of moving parts. Like I just received 13 unemployment letters in the mail this past week, and not a single one of these people work for me.
Oh.
So there's some fraud going on. So
significant.
Then I try
fraud.
to call and take care of it, and you're on the phone on hold for 3 or 4 hours. So there's just all these little things that you wouldn't think of. So
right.
I actually just saw somebody else posted on Facebook yesterday that they got 9 of them in the mail, and these are people that I have access to my payroll online, and these people, I remember every single person that's worked for me.
Yeah.
And none of these people work for me. These names are nothing I know. So it's kind of crazy what's going on out there right now too. So
yeah, it's interesting.
You've got to be really on top of everything. When you own your own business, that it's if you get lax for a minute, things can fall through the cracks. I was telling the guys earlier today, it's like a giant funnel with all these holes in it, and I got to sit and plug up every single hole to keep. It's not the water; it's the money from flowing out of the funnel.
Right.
It's like a strainer, and you have to. Our margins are so tight that it's not. I mean, somebody comes in on a weekend and sees how busy we are, but they don't see the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that weren't busy at all.
Yeah,
you can't make it on 2 days a week.
Right.
So it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of you gotta take a little bit, portion off some money for marketing. Social media is very important, and we kind of stay on that. That's been our bread and butter, especially through COVID, because I was able to do some cool stuff like Throwback Thursdays, where I was doing La Scola items.
Yeah.
And then Burger Bar. I think I sold like 2,000 burgers during. It was crazy. I was flipping burgers all during COVID for carryout, because to me, a lot of the food I do scares me to death to go out in a carryout container. And the hummuses and all that stuff it's fine, but sending a lamb shank home or a short rib that could sit up in the window and dry out because somebody says they're going to be there at 6:30 and they don't get there till 7:15 to pick it up.
Yeah,
that falls on me when they get home.
Right.
But the burgers, the burgers were easy.
Huge hit.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about, like, I don't know how much of this you do all the time, if you're doing it all the time or if it's going to be the new normal, but when you do like those like the wine dinner.
Yeah, those are going to be.
Do you do those consistently? Like, how do people know that those are happening? Because I know they sell out like.
They sell quick because we've been doing them like once a month, and people have a blast at them, and we make them really memorable. So once they hit, they're almost sold out instantaneously. So I'll do those on a Monday or a Sunday, so there's no dinner service involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially during COVID, we've done them and spaced it out and sold them out. So
yeah,
and we just reserve the whole restaurant for it. And, I've maxed them out at 90 before. It's to do 6 courses at 90 people. That's a lot of plates, and it's mass production, and getting them out is a total team effort. But they're a lot of fun, and we're not going to stop doing them. Probably I'd like to do them twice a month, but
yeah, that's a cool experience though. Like the elements of there's some pretty neat elements that just brings everything. It brings everything together because you've got the chef, the guy that owns it, and then you've got the food, and you've got the wine, you've got the layers of all this stuff. But now all of a sudden you've got all these things coming together, and then it's really neat as someone who's attended these things to be like you're pairing things together.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many elements that us normal people that don't have that genius, we don't really think about it. Like we might step right over it. Mm-hmm. And then you just mention it. You're like, oh my God, yeah, that is what that is. And then this brings it, and it brings it full circle, and it just it's pretty awesome. Like that's my favorite. So, setting you up for what your favorite part is, that's my favorite part is when you have the food that's awesome, and then somebody that walks up and like explains why it's so awesome. Cause I don't know.
Right.
I just know it's pretty great.
My favorite part, I guess, is the whole picture and how it ends up and how people are happy. Making people happy is a huge thing for me. And my whole approach to the wine dinners is I don't put a menu out online. Everybody's always asking for a menu, and they sell out. So I won't do it, because here's what happens is if it's on Monday, I don't even know by Saturday. I brought in different proteins, which I have an idea of what I'm going to do, but I don't even have the menu together because I'm not wired that way. I have to put the pressure on at the last minute, and bam. And it's a little weird, but it's just that's the way I do it.
Well, it's kind of cool anyways. Like people are going there, they don't know what they're going to eat necessarily, and then you're also not disappointing them in the sense that there's not hey, by the way, I couldn't get that. I was planning to do this, but I couldn't get it. Oh, I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah, you show up and there's octopus in front of you. You're like, what? Wow, this is cool. So those are a lot of fun, and I think we'll continue to do them. And I'm going to continue. For charity, I haven't done a lot of charity this year because there's been a lot of virtual stuff, but I usually do a lot of stuff each year, and I give away, wine dinners for 10 for people to auction off, and I have given away a lot of cooking classes. So we're gonna start doing these cooking classes on Sunday, and in front of our expo area, maximum 12 people. And my cooking classes they're not, hey, everybody's got an apron on in the kitchen. Everybody's watching what I'm doing, and they're drinking wine, and they're eating everything I'm making. So by the time everybody's ready to go home, it's Uber time. So you go. It's mostly ladies, and sometimes it's couples, but they'll have a good time with that. So the cooking classes are another aspect of what we can do, and they're a lot of fun. And we usually print off everything and email everybody everything that we've done. So it's a good team builder if you want to bring some of your employees in, or it's good for corporate stuff, and they're fun. So.
If somebody wanted to keep track of those things, like, are they following you on Facebook, or like where's the best place to know about these cool things happening?
Either my Instagram page, the restaurant. I have my own page. The restaurant has an Instagram page, the Facebook page. That would be the best. Yeah, we're always all over the place on Instagram and Facebook, and I do some of my own stuff because I always share everything that's on the Souk page onto my personal page because I have so many people on my page too. So so that's that's the cool stuff, and you're able to buy these wines at these wine dinners too. And before COVID, it was mainly if an Italian winemaker was in town, I'd snag him up, and you actually had the winemaker. Mm-hmm. Right now, nobody was.
It's a little weird.
It's a little weird. So nobody's really traveling around. It's usually my vendors who are very knowledgeable too. So, but they get a lot better when the actual winemakers come in town too. That gets really, really cool.
Good. So, awesome, man. Yeah. It's always good catching up.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good to kind of know what's going on with Souk and keep plugging away. And before you know it, the weather will be breaking. We'll be back on the patio, having a couple of the signature cocktails and doing the stuff.
Can't wait for that weather to break, and hopefully we get a an opening day this year sometime.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
I think it's going to be a little bit later, but that would be nice.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I haven't had one of those yet.
No, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Always good.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yep, you bet.
Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah.
DeVerna offers products and services using the following business names: Creative Financial Partners, Insurance and Financial Services, Emeritus Investment Company, LLC, AIC, member FINRA, SIPC, Security Investments, Emeritus Advisory Services, AAS Investment Advisory Services. AIC and AAS are not affiliated with Creative Financial Partners. Products and services are limited to residents of states where the representative is registered. This is not an offer of securities in any jurisdiction, nor is it specifically directed to a resident of any jurisdiction. As with any security request and prospectus from a representative, read carefully before you invest or send money. A representative will contact you to provide requested information. Representatives of AIC and AAS do not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney regarding the situation.
Whew. Thanks for watching.